You're either trying to build this wall brick by brick, or you're on the other side of it trying to tear it down. The reserve list stands strong, proud, and it's the last castle standing. Welcome back, everyone. MTG Moxman here, and thanks again for hanging out with me on my channel today. A reminder that if you enjoyed today's content, if you had a good time while you were here, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on your notification bells. New content every single day of the week. I look forward to reading your comments in the comment section. When we're talking about the reserve list, there's two conversations happening at the same time. There are those for the reserve list and those people against the reserve list. Those who think these cards should be valuable, crazy pieces of antiquity, new players coming on board who have never been able to afford them, and they want them to be cheap. They want their game pieces. But those two sides of the conversation do not matter to Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast is here to capitalize. They want to siege the castle, the last one standing. They want to get their fingers into that pie and just ream as much cash as they can from reprinting reserve list cards. Now, the funniest thing is, Wizards of the Coast has done this various times over the years to bring in the profits, to bring in money. And 30th anniversary was the last real attempt. They thought they'd found a way to siege. They were going to just climb the castle walls on the ladders. They were bringing out the battering rams to knock everything down. You know what happened? Well, they thought the walls were unguarded. They thought the walls were not protected by the collectors, investors of players who just have so many reserve list cards hoarding in their basements that they had to protect it. I count myself among those people, but for different reasons. And sure enough, as Wizards got to the top of the wall and presented the 30th anniversary, they were kicked off. They went tumbling down into the moat, and they're just now finally starting to get up, dust themselves off, and wonder, what just happened? When you're talking about the reserve list, when you're talking about a top 10 weekly update video on MTG Finance that I cover for reserve list every week, there are weeks when there's lots of sales. There are weeks when there was almost no sales. A new product can come and be launched out, and you're going to have cards get sold like hotcakes. Sometimes they're reserve list, sometimes they're not. All of these conversations lead back, though, to what Wizards of the Coast wants to do. They want to find a way to capitalize on that secondary value. Do you think Wizards of the Coast cares about your game pieces? Do you think they care that you want them cheap? When they priced out 30th anniversary, did they make it cheap for you? Was it affordable for you to buy packs and get your dual lands? No. Wizards of the Coast is here to capitalize as much money as they can for the shareholders. So again, it doesn't matter if you're a protector of the reserve list or somebody who wants to tear it down. Wizards of the Coast just wants their money. And that's where they fall on this side of the conversation. They're not for or against. They want there to be something to cash in. And with their fingers in so many pies right now, it really shouldn't come as a surprise that they're trying to find a way to get to the most lucrative part of Magic the Gathering, and that is the reserve list. Now, with what happened with the 30th anniversary, prices are falling and tumbling down. But you know what? I don't know if you noticed, the reserve list is still here. The wall still stands. The castle gates are closed. The portcullis has been dropped. And there's a lot of players who have invested and spent tens of thousands of dollars buying their reserve list collections, and they have no intention of seeing those cards go to zero. In their eyes, it's not their fault that you can't afford the cards. It's not their fault that these cards are old and valuable. They didn't create the reserve list. They are just enforcing what is already in existence, where they've decided to spend their money buying their dual lands. Spending their money, hey, maybe even buying a Soldevi Excavations, it doesn't matter. To them, they must be protected and held and guarded against anyone who wants to tear it down, because it is the last thing standing. It is the last truly valuable piece of Magic that's left, and Wizards of the Coast, after everything they've got going on right now, is going to try to find a way to get through those gates. Will they try it now? No, guys, come on. After 30th anniversary, after you guys push them off the wall, watch them tumble down? No. They're going to wait 5 to 7 years. They are still hoping that those older Magic players with the massive collections, millions of dollars in Magic, they're hoping those players are just going to age out at some point. That's what they're hoping for. It'll be interesting to see what the next 30 years of Magic is like, but right now, the wall is well guarded. Wizards of the Coast, you got rebuffed. You're sitting in the dust. Think about what you've done. Now, enough of this jibber jabber about what's happening with the reserve list. Just remember where Wizards of the Coast stands. So either you're a protector of the reserve list, you want to tear it down, but I'm not sure why you want to tear it down, by the way. I'm for expanding the reserve list. I personally would love to see the reserve list expand, a couple of cards every single set and continue to grow to get that collectability available to every player. But at the same time, I can see players who say they should just be game pieces. Well, then go proxy yourself a set. That's pretty easy, pretty affordable as well from what I'm told from people. You can get some crazy versions nowadays. You don't need the real thing if you just want to play the game. If you're not going to a Legacy Vintage tournament, what does it matter? Just enjoy the game. It's an amazing game to play. And maybe one day, the secret plan I think Wizards has is to make a new Vintage Legacy style set that can be paired off with those old cards, but it'll be so powerful that everyone can get in if you can afford the $600-$700 boxes they're going to make those things. Because they know there's value there, and the players who have these cards already will pay that money. Keep that in mind. They're not here to make it affordable for you. They're here to cash in. That's just how I see it, guys. It's my opinion. Now, this is a top 10 video. These are the hottest selling cards in Magic this week. And this is an interesting video because with the release of Doctor Who, we got some crazy stuff going on that you guys need to be aware of. So we're going to take a look at some of these cards. Let me know what you guys are thinking. And I will drop a few narrative sections in there as well to get this conversation started. Let's get the party going. Let's wrap it. The number 10 card this week is Soldevi Excavations from Alliances. With an average price tag of $16.19, the market price is $15.73, €11.26 to get this card into your house. Here in Canada, you're looking around $25 Canadian for a near mint copy, but TCG player, you can find copies for $10 or around there for light play to moderately play, depending on what you're looking for. Now, the number 9 card this week is Null Rod from Weatherlight, and it has an average price tag of $89.99. The market price is $77.34, €55.62 to get this card into your house. And of course, here in Canada, it's around $110 Canadian. Now, 28 sales for Null Rod is nothing spectacular, guys. The sales are a little bit lower, you can see, but this card continues to get bought week after week in volumes anywhere from 10 to 20 cards. It's a 2 generic casting cost artifact. Players cannot play any artifact abilities requiring an activation cost. This card can severely limit what other players can do, and that's why it continues to find a home inside Commander builds that do not involve artifacts. Let's go ahead and take a look at the number 8 card this week, and that is Vesuvian Doppelganger with 29 sales this week, an average price tag of $17.95 US. The market price is $21.02 US, €11.46 to get this card into your house, $23 here in Canada for a near mint copy. Now, this is the revised copy, which is the one that's going to cost you the least amount of money, which is probably why it's seeing the most sales. Remember, this card is a 2 blue, 3 generic summon Doppelganger. Upon summoning, the Doppelganger acquires all characteristics except color of any one creature in play on either side. Any creature enchantments will not be copied, blah, 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 but you can also switch this to new creatures as it comes into play, which is why the Doppelganger continues to see play in various decks. It's also a very affordable card at this point, and with no fear of it being reprinted anytime soon on the reserve list, this card will continue to see some strong sales in the intervening months. Let's go ahead and take a look at number 7 this week, and that is, of course, Lake of the Dead with some of the most iconic artwork ever in Magic's history. This card is from Alliances. It has 30 sales this week. The average price tag is $79.16 US. The market price is $73.95 US, €61.35 to get this card into your house. It's around $105 here in Canada for a lightly played copy. Near mint ones are actually like $130, so you're better finding this card on TCG Player than buying it locally if you're here in Canada. Now, Lake of the Dead, guys, this art, it was so great as we were kids. It's great as an adult. I look back very fondly on this card. I can't help but just go, yeah, reliving part of your childhood, your younger years. But not only that, this card is a very powerful land staple in a lot of decks, which is why it continues to see sales. And there are players out there hoarding these copies, guys. In the MTG finance world, there are players out there who still buy these cards, hoping for brighter days in the future. Any reserve list card can also be targeted and manipulated for buyouts. Always keep that stuff in mind. Wait for your time to buy when you think it's a good price. Now, number 6 this week is a bit of a surprise. Hall of Gemstone. This Mirage card has not been on the list for quite a while. It had 34 sales this week. The average price tag is $9.89 US. The market price is $8.94 US. €11 3 cents to get this card into your house. It's about $20 here in Canada. But what I find interesting, on TCG Player, you can find this thing for $5. So what are we getting for our $5 bill? This is a 2 green, 1 generic enchant world, which means it affects everybody. It says, during each player's upkeep, that player chooses a color. Until end of turn, each mana-producing land produces mana of the chosen color instead of the normal color. This can mess up basically any opponent inside Commander. Remember that. If you're playing a mono build and you really don't care, or you're playing a colorless deck with just some splashes of color to get cards like this into play, you can just wreak havoc on opponents' decks, okay? Keep this stuff in mind. I even had a friend one time, he used to unsummon this with Time Elemental. It was just brutal, guys. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at our next card. The number 5 card this week is Fast Bond. It's been knocked out of the top spot, and it comes in at number 5 this week with 39 sales, October 8th to the 13th. This is a revised edition card with an average price of $28.77. The market price is $23.09. €16.38 to get this card into your house. Around $40 here in Canada. Now, at the price point this card is going, you are going to see lowering and lowering of the sales volumes. It's a very expensive card, and it's not legal in Commander yet. A lot of players are still of the opinion it could never be unbanned. Now, I'm not sure what world they're living in where they think that they control the actions of Wizards of the Coast, of the Rules Committee for Commander, but if we've learned anything, there are no rules when it comes to this stuff. They're not the definitive, voice of Magic the Gathering wherever they may feel they are. They're just not there any more than I am here. I'm just giving the opinion that this card could be unbanned. Never think it can't happen, because if Time Vault can get unbanned, Fastbond can get unbanned. This card, in the fast-paced world of Commander, yes, it leads to crazy combinations of cards, but so does everything else that goes on in Commander anyway. Keep this stuff in mind, guys. You could have insane combinations that are unbanned right now, so why would they not unban a card like Fastbond? But at the price point we're talking about, this card is not likely to see a lot of sales in the intervening weeks. The price is just too high for a card at this level in the economy we're in right now. So I expect to see sales lowering down finally. This card has been in the top 10 now for over 2.5 months and just seems to refuse to go away. Let's go ahead and take a look at the number 4 card this week, and that is Fork from Revised Edition with 40 sales this week. Average price tag is $38.26. The market price is $37.32. €17.40 to get this card into your house. Now, Fork, of course, is one of those all-time great cards. You should own at least one copy if you're playing in a Commander game, but it's also a card to have around if you're ever playing Vintage Legacy. I always love me some Fork. Time Walk, Fork, 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 yeah. Now, number 3 this week. This is Soul Devi Digger from Alliances with 64 sales this week. Average price tag $8.51. The market price is $6.18. €4.61 to get this card into your house. Now, it had the spike with the announcement of Doctor Who and the card River. Now, when we see what's happened with this sales volumes for Doctor Who, it really shouldn't be a surprise that as the card dipped down in value, we saw a much stronger sales volume of this card at release. I'm not surprised at all. This is a reserve list card that can't be reprinted, and any player who wants to mess around with it is welcome to do so, and that's why we're seeing the sales volumes we're getting right now. For those who haven't seen this card before, Soul Devi Digger is a 2 generic casting cost. Put the top card of your graveyard onto the bottom of your library. And of course, River from Doctor Who says you draw from the bottom of your library. So you can basically cause infinite recursions of certain cards depending on what you're trying to do. I love the card, love the idea of it, and it's going to see a lot of play as people try to mess around and break stuff. Now, number 2 this week, Winding Canyons. I did mention this in a card video of cards you should be paying attention to buy because it's so inexpensive. If you were looking on TCG Player, you could find this card for like $10, $11. It's a Weatherlight card that doesn't come into play tapped. 72 sales this week. Average price tag $19. Market price $17.79. cents, €15, 3 cents to get this card into your house, $25 in Canada. But unlike so many other land cards that have particular colors in mind, Winding Canyons can go with anything. Because it's colorless and uses colorless until the end of turn, you may play creature cards whenever you could play instants. Means any creature you want can have flash if you have the right mana available. A card like this allows a generic concept idea of flash to be added to any single deck you want, and that is something that just cannot be understated. Now, the number one card this week is Baron Seigneur, and this is from Homelands. I'm not too surprised with the initial sales volumes, but it's when I saw that card drop for the new Lost Caverns of Ixalan. All of a sudden, we had a surge in sales for Baron Seigneur and who's the other one? The Grandmother Seigneur. She sold quite a few copies too, but not enough to make the list. Like, she doesn't sell anything normally. It was like 15, 16 copies, kind of out of the blue. Now, when we're looking at Baron Seigneur here, you can see it's less than $5. The market price is €6.37, €4.25. Here in Canada, it's like $5. But when you look at what he can do, as a Homelands card, this guy was pretty powerful back in the day, guys. He's an 8 casting cost, 5/5 with flying. Whenever a creature is put into a graveyard, the same turn Baron Seigneur damaged it, put a +2/+2 counter on Baron Seigneur. You can also regenerate target vampires. This guy's actually a pretty powerful vampire guy. And of course, the new card we saw was like a vampire cleric. So all these new conceptually powerful vampires can fit with something like Baron Seigneur as kind of an anchor stone to regenerate stuff. Kind of insane stuff. So let's get to the wrap up. 572 cards of fun. That's the reserve list, and it hasn't been this affordable in years. Take the opportunity, get some of the cards you've always wanted if the price is at the right point for you. Thanks again for hanging out with me here on the channel today, and don't forget, bring a friend to Magic. I'll see you tomorrow for another video. And of course, here we are again looking at the amazing patrons who support this channel each and every day, guys. Because of the amazing patron support we get here, we are able to upload daily content every day. For all my amazing patrons out there, thanks again for being there. What do you guys think? A little strong? Am I going to get a lot of hate mail on that one? Defending the reserve list can be a big thing. Expanding the reserve list, what a concept. I know. Welcome back to the Ramble Jamble. We are here at the end, and we know that nobody makes it this far. It's only you and me and a few other people who get to sit there and kind of rehash what just happened. Because I've noticed that if somebody really wants to play with reserve list cards, they don't need the reserve list to be broken. They can just go proxy them. I've seen it at game stores lately more often than I have in a long time. Just playing casual decks, having a good time. It shouldn't stop them from enjoying playing with the old cards. But the idea of actually reprinting the value of those cards, that's where you start getting into tricky territory. So I say just leave it alone, Wizards, and move on. This castle is not for you. This castle, the walls are too high, they're too thick, and it's generational wealth that's going to be passed along to kids and kids of kids as parents and adults and grandparents who spend hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars getting reserve list cards. They have no intention of letting you devalue their product line, man. They will go to war with you. They will just, I can just picture it. Anyway, maybe nothing will happen, but it's a great conversation to think about. I was talking with Mini Mox about it and some friends, and I'll be honest, some of my friends, of course, quit the game. They left before because of what was happening with 30th anniversary, and then that one guy came back when he saw what was happening with Lord of the Rings, and he's basically rebought all of his power cards, and he actually saved money. Can you believe that? Because he sold when things were still a little bit higher. And now things are so cheap, he's actually managed to rebuy some of the original cards from the store. It was so bad. He was talking about how he traded a Mox for like $4,000, but he just bought it back for $3,000. I know sell high, buy low, whatever. Crazy stuff, guys. Anyway, thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out with the Mox, man. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Thumbs up thing, water, drink, boomstick. Yeah, boomstick, 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 boomstick.